You know that nagging, frustrating shoulder pain? The kind that just hangs around no matter how much you stretch it or rest it or complain about it? Yeah, you're not alone. But what if I told you the real source of that stubborn pain isn't even in your shoulder at all?
What if that pain you're feeling is basically a decoy, a signal that's pointing you in the wrong direction, while the real problem starts somewhere else entirely?
When our shoulder hurts, our brain immediately jumps to the usual suspects, right? It's got to be a torn rotator cuff or tendinitis, or we just overdid it at the gym. But so often, the hidden culprit, the real villain of the story, is an irritated C5 nerve, located right in your neck.
To really get this, we have to look at your shoulder's secret controller. This is where we can finally connect the dots between that ache in your arm and what's happening in your spine.
Okay, so let's meet the main character in this story, the C5 nerve root. This is a critical nerve that comes out from your cervical spine, that's just the fancy word for your neck, and it basically acts as the primary command center for your entire shoulder and upper arm. To put it simply, it's the boss.
So here's the deal. When that C5 nerve gets pinched or squeezed or just plain irritated, usually because of some misalignment in the neck, the problem doesn't just stay there. Nope. It creates a massive ripple effect, sending waves of weakness, pain, and instability right down into your shoulder. So what does this nerve actually do that makes it so important? Let's take a quick tour of its main jobs, and you'll see why it's such a big deal.
First and foremost, the C5 nerve powers your deltoid muscle. That's the muscle that lets you lift your arm out to the side. You know, for things like reaching up to a high shelf or even just combing your hair. And that dull, deep ache you might feel right at the very top of your shoulder, yep, that's a classic C5 calling card.
It also controls your biceps. I mean, think about it. Anytime you're lifting groceries, carrying your kid, or picking up weights, you need your biceps. If you feel like your arm just gets weak or tired way too easily when you do those things, it could absolutely be a sign of poor nerve flow coming from that C5 root.
But it's not just about raw power. The C5 nerve is also kind of like the conductor of an orchestra. It coordinates all those little muscles in your rotator cuff, telling them exactly how to work together to give you smooth, stable, and powerful movement.
Okay, so how can you tell if a C5 issue is the real source of your pain? Let's look at the specific signs, because they're often mistaken for something else entirely.
So as we go through this symptom checklist, just be honest with yourself. Do any of these sound a little too familiar?
Look at this list. The deep ache, the sharp pain, the bicep weakness, that annoying stiffness that stretching never fixes. See? They all scream shoulder problem, right? But here are the giveaways. That tingling or numbness on the outside of your arm, and especially that connection to head-forward posture and upper back fatigue. Those are the big clues that the problem actually starts higher up, in the neck.
So, who's most likely to run into this kind of nerve irritation? Well, it turns out that certain jobs and daily lifestyles put a lot more stress on our necks than we think.
First up, the office worker. That classic hunched over a keyboard posture, it's a huge culprit. It literally flattens out the healthy, natural curve of your neck and puts direct, constant stress right on that C5 area.
Next up, overhead athletes. If you're a swimmer, a pitcher, or a volleyball player, all of those powerful, repetitive arm motions can create tiny little traumas over time that just knock your C5 alignment out of whack.
And hey, to all the new parents out there, this one's definitely for you. Constantly lifting kids, hauling car seats, and lugging diaper bags, and almost always awkwardly into one side, puts a tremendous amount of uneven strain right on your neck. And finally, people who work with their hands and arms held up all day, like hairstylists or electricians. Holding those prolonged positions for hours at a time is pretty much a perfect recipe for compressing that C5 nerve. You know, it's not just our jobs, though. The small daily habits are just as important. Think about that awkward twist to reach something in the backseat of your car, or sleeping with your head propped way up on a stack of pillows, or even just wearing a heavy bag on the same shoulder every single day. All these things seem so minor, but they really add up over time.
This all leads us to a really critical question. What happens if you just ignore it? The long-term difference between neglecting the problem and restoring proper function is pretty stark.
Okay, the progression of C5 neglect is, well, it's sobering. What starts as just some on and off pain and tightness in the first few years can evolve into chronic nerve inflammation and even bone spurs. And if it's left unaddressed for over 15 years, you're looking at degenerative joint changes and even the risk of permanent nerve damage. This is a big deal.
But it absolutely does not have to go that way. And this quote really gets to the heart of it all. You don't have to live with shoulder strain, bicep weakness, or tingling arms. Shoulder strength starts with your spine. That's the key.
Ultimately, the solution isn't just about treating the shoulder. The real key is restoring proper alignment in the neck. That one act helps to reconnect the communication highway between your brain and your muscles, which finally allows your body to function properly and heal itself naturally.
So, that brings us to our final question for you. Now that you know your shoulder has a secret controller hiding out in your neck, how will you rethink the source of your pain and what you decide to do about it?